こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、サッカー日本代表に関する動画です。今回は、代表戦といえば、デドボル TV のチャンネルにて、この6月シリーズのプレビューをしています。今回は日本戦の部分のみを切り取っていますが、他の試合もすべてプレビューしているので、ぜひ見てみてください。B チームと呼んでいる日本チームでも、実力があるのは間違いなく、オーストラリアも主力メンバーがかなり離脱しているため、この試合も日本が勝つだろうと予想しています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
Welcome everybody to the final part of my three-part series previewing Asian World Cup qualifiers for the June 2025 window. This video is all about Group C. That's why it's part 3 of the series. Groups A and B are already out on the channel, so if you want to know more about what's going on in the other groups, or you're just an Asian football obsessed person, there's plenty of content for you to consume. And before I get into these previews, which I will do very shortly, I'm very likely to go live for the Australia versus Japan game in match day 9. I'm trying to spread the live streams throughout, the 3 groups, give everybody a little bit of love. So Group C's is going to be Australia versus Japan. I know that Japan's not bringing the A team, which I'll get into here in a second, but it's still a huge game with massive ramifications for the rest of the group. Certainly not a toss-away game or anything like that. So if you don't want to miss the live stream and all the other videos covering Asian football here on Deadball TV, make sure you are subscribed. So the first game we're going to talk about is the favorite for the live stream, Australia versus Japan in Perth. Couple things worth mentioning. I already talked about how Japan, having already qualified to the World Cup, the first Asian nation to do so, they're not bringing the full squad here. This might be a rotated Japanese team, but don't mistake that for no big players being here. We're still going to see Wataru Endo, Takefusa Kubo, Daichi Kamada, Keito Nakamura, and Zion Suzuki. And those are just the big names. There's a couple other starters who will be here too. And the reason I'm saying that is I want everybody to be very careful in describing this as a bad Japanese team. Because a bad Japanese team, or the Japanese B team, I still think qualifies for the 2026 World Cup. They have way too much firepower. And personally, I'm very excited to seeing guys like Kaishu Sano, who had a beast of a season over there for Mines, get some minutes. Koto Takai is going to be back, kind of one of the more young and promising Japanese defenders. Watanabe, who had a beast of a season out in Belgium. Like, there's good players here. Beating this Japanese team will be very hard. Now, for Australia, they finally dropped their freaking squad this morning, and there are some big names missing here as well, man. Harry Sutar, Jordan Boss, Craig Goodwin, Velipile, Keanu Bacchus, Yengi, Irakunda, and the biggest one, in my opinion, Jackson Irvine. Those are huge emissions. You could honestly make the argument that Australia have just as many first-team guys and important players missing as Japan. Only one team's already qualified, and the other one has a long way to go this window. Now, it's not a completely dead team, but I would be shocked if there's many Australians out there who looked at this squad and said, yep, we're taking 6 points this window. Japan at home and Saudi Arabia away, easy work with this team. There's really not a ton of creativity here. Yeah, you got Martin Boyle, thank God. Alessandro Shakati's back, and I think he's going to be a beast. I think he's one of the Asian defenders with the highest ceilings across all the countries. I dropped my AFC team of the seasons for 2024, 2025 on the channel. I wouldn't be surprised if Shakati makes it a couple times over the next decade. But man, there is some serious question marks in here. Japan have already qualified, and they've been the best team by a mile. On the flip side, Australia have kind of been draw merchants, and there's not really a ton of great, beautiful football to watch, though they did pick up 6 points in the last window. I know it was against Indonesia and China, and that's not the greatest opposition level, but those were huge points. If they were to have dropped either of those games last window, they would be in big trouble right now. But because of that, they're able to survive here, getting a draw at home against Japan. I'm not saying that's the objective, but if they do that, they're in a good place. Now, it's pretty crazy to me that these teams combined have one loss in the last 20 games. And that one game is Australia's loss to Bahrain in match day 1. Now, some of you may or may not know, but this rivalry between Australia and Japan has been incredibly one-sided recently. With Australia's last win coming in 2009. In the last 10 meetings, there's been 4 draws and 6 wins for Japan. I think if this was a rivalry that got more clout around the world, there would be more people clowning Australia for this. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other rivalries in which one of the teams has gone 10 consecutive games without a win. Certainly a rivalry including big footballing nations, and I think Australia and Japan both qualify. If there is one, comment down below, because I got to look into that. I got to put those guys on blast too. I should say, though, that despite the record, the games are generally competitive. Even last cycle, if you guys remember, Kaori Mitoma, some late minute magic in the 89th minute. They beat Australia away, and I think at the game, In Japan, Junya Ito forces an own goal on Beihich also super late in the game. So it ended up being a double L for Australia, but it's not like they got blown out of the water. For the first game between these guys, I did a live stream for that too, and it was basically Australia sit back, allergic to the ball, couple own goals, and we end with a 1-1. I don't think Japan were particularly good. I think it was a strong defensive performance from Australia. Jason Garia, in particular, was a guy I had no idea who he was. I thought he was a menace that game. And honestly, the circumstances for this game are kind of similar to the first one, too, where if the Australians make it out with a draw, that puts them on 14 points, and even if Saudi Arabia beats Bahrain away in Rifa, they're still just needing a draw in Riyadh to qualify. And so, this being Australia, after all, I kind of think they're going to go for the draw. I think a 1-1 draw is the safe prediction for what's going on here, but I'm actually going to say that Japan win this game. And the reason I'm saying that is because this Australia under Popovich, with so many of these guys missing, I hope I'm not being offensive, but I genuinely cannot imagine an Australian victory here. Like, I just don't know where it comes from. Like, is it Mitchell Duke scoring the goals? Is it Riley McGree? Like, I don't know where the creativity comes from. You don't even have Sutar for the set pieces anymore. I'm kind of scratching my head. So I do think even though Japan are missing some players, they can definitely get the win here. I think it's a 50-50 likelihood between a Japanese victory and a draw. Moving on to match day 10, we have Japan versus Indonesia in Japan. Now, I think one of the mini headlines here is, can Indonesia repeat the miracle, the Southeast Asian miracle that Vietnam were able to do in the last qualifying window, where they actually drew Japan in this game 1-1. Now, Indonesia, they want a little bit more than moral victories. They're genuinely trying to get to the World Cup. And I think if they're able to replicate that result with a much better squad than what the Vietnamese had in 2022, they're probably in round 4, which that in itself is a massive success for Indonesia. People think I hate Indonesia, and it's just laughable to me. I don't hate Indonesia, I just hate the recruitment. I've said it in my other videos, but previewing these match day 10 ones are really difficult because I don't know what Indonesia's going to be going for in this game, right? Like, there's one circumstance where Saudi Arabia have beaten Bahrain and Indonesia have beaten China, in which case Indonesia's through and nobody really cares what happens in this game. And if that's the case and it's kind of like a friendly affair where everybody's just experimenting with lineups and everything, I think Japan win because they're simply way better than Indonesia. But if this is a circumstance where maybe Indonesia draw China, right, that would put them on 10 points. Bahrain beats Saudi Arabia, puts them on 9, and the Bahraini and Chinese teams are going to be playing each other for that round 4 spot, then Indonesia have to go for it. And actually, the more I'm talking about it now, I still don't think they get anything. And it's not because I don't think Indonesia are good. It's because if I look at how the Japanese B team, again, I'm using that term because it's familiar to all of us, the B team is compared to what the rotated B team looked like last window, I mean, it's a miles difference, y'all. I've talked about Japan as being the biggest team that has improved from the 2022 cycle, and there is no debating that. And the fact that they were doing that as already the best team in Asia, and they've still taken the biggest leap, like a bigger leap than what Iraq has taken, a bigger leap than what Uzbekistan have taken. Maybe Jordan. I'd have to go back and look at the 2022 cycle again, but I feel like they were still beating Australia or getting draws against them. So I feel like they've also improved. I'm not saying other teams haven't improved, but Japan are like a different beast. And for me personally, a little bit of another mini challenge here, just like I'm saying, hey, Renard, this is your last chance with me. Moriyasu, if you cannot win another game at home in front of the Japanese fans, shame on you. The fact that Japan have dropped 2 games at home, they haven't lost, but they've got 2 draws at home, is an embarrassment. Get out there and win for the fans who are paying good money to watch your national team play. I digress. In the end, I do think Japan wins it maybe by 1 goal or 2.
次は解説です。相変わらず聞きやすい英語でしたね。ボキャブラリーも難しいものは全然ありませんでしたが、その中でもあまり知らなそうなものや、便利に使えそうなものをピックアップしていますので、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。But it's still a huge game with massive ramifications.
ラミフィケーションは、特にビジネスや政治の文脈でよく使われる語です。何かを決めたときに、その決定が他のことにどう影響を及ぼすのか、思いがけない副作用のようなものまで含めて指します。例えば、新しい政策を導入したけど、実は多くの部門に問題が出たというような場面に使います。影響と訳されますが、単純な因果関係よりも、もっと複雑で多層的な広がりを持つ波紋のようなニュアンスです。
But it's still a huge game with massive ramifications. Certainly not a toss away game or anything like that.
トスアウェイは、物理的に何かをポイッと捨てるときにも使いますが、日常会話やビジネス英語では、チャンスや大切なものを無駄にするや、不意にするという意味で使われることが多いです。例えば、彼はチャンスを捨てたという時などに使われます。スローアウェイと似ていますが、トスの方がややカジュアルで軽率な響きがあります。軽々しく手放すというニュアンスを強調したい時に便利です。
Certainly not a toss away game or anything like that. There would be more people clowning Australia for this.
クラウンは、もともと道化師やピエロを意味する単語です。日常英語やスラングでは、バカにされる人や、ふざけて人を笑わせる人を意味することが多いです。さらに、動詞としては、誰かをバカにするや、ネタにするという侮蔑的な意味合いもあります。SNS や若者言葉では、面白がって人を茶化す際に使われます。
There would be more people clowning Australia for this. I gotta put those guys on blast too.
プットオンブラストは、SNS や日常会話でよく使われるスラングで、誰かの失敗や悪事を公にして非難することを意味します。特に Twitter や TikTok などで、誰々を晒すといった行動にあたります。例えば、誰かの秘密をばらしたり、悪口を公の場で言ったりするような場面に使われ、軽い冗談から深刻な告発まで幅広いトーンで使われるため、文脈の理解が重要です。
I gotta put those guys on blast too. But it's not like they got blown out of the water.
ブローアウト・オブ・ザ・ウォーターは、もともと軍事用語で、船を爆破して水上から吹き飛ばすという意味が語源ですが、日常会話やビジネス、スポーツなど幅広い分野で使われる比喩表現です。圧倒するや、完膚なきまでにやっつけるという強い意味合いがあります。例えば、試合やプレゼン、製品比較などで、大差をつけて勝った、優れていると言いたいときに使います。
Yeah, but it's not like they got blown out of the water. I thought he was a menace that game.
メナスは、危険や不安をもたらす存在や行動に対して使う言葉です。例えば、悪意のある人や自然災害、社会的な問題など、実際の危険を伴う、脅威を指すことが多いです。ややフォーマルで強い意味を持ちますが、冗談めかして、子供がうるさくて手に負えないというような軽い意味でも使われることがあります。
I thought he was a menace that game. And they've still taken the biggest leap.
リープは、飛ぶという物理的な動作を表すほかに、比喩的に大きな成長、急な前進、思い切った行動という意味でも非常によく使われます。技術の飛躍や大胆な決断など、ニュースやビジネス会話でも登場します。ジャンプと似ていますが、リープの方が大きく劇的な動きや変化を表します。
And they've still taken the biggest leap. I digress.
ダイグレスは、会話やスピーチで話が脱線する。本題から離れる時などに使うフォーマルな動詞です。特に、長い説明の途中で脱線し、話がそれましたねのように元の話に戻る表現としてよく使われます。日本語の話はそれますが、余談ですがに相当します。ビジネス英語やプレゼン、議論の中で知っておくと便利な単語です。
I digress.
いかがでしたか？今回の日本代表のメンバーでも、強いのは間違いないと自信さえ感じましたね。このメンバーでさらに良い試合をし、オーストラリアに勝つことができれば、さらに日本の強さを誇示することになるのでしょう。佐野海舟や高井浩太や渡辺剛の名前も挙げていましたが、今回の試合で、さらにまた良い選手を発見する機会にもなるでしょうし、アジアで図抜けている日本が、成長率でも最高であるという表現は、日本がいかに圧倒的な存在になっているのかがわかるものでしょう。この動画には関係していませんが、佐野海舟に関して、日本代表に呼ぶなという声が大きくなっているようですが、そういう声は、個人的には大嫌いです。レオザさんが言うように、森保監督が使ったミスという表現も良くなかったとは思いますが、過去の過ちについて、取り返すことはできませんが、サッカーを通して、日本代表としても素晴らしいプレーと結果を出してくれることで、社会に貢献したり、夢を与えることが、これからの将来にできる最大限の努力ではないでしょうか。過去の過ちのために、もう代表に呼ぶなという意見は、個人的には大嫌いですし、少なくともどれくらい待てばよいのか、どうしたら代表でプレーできるのかという意見をするというのは、議論にもできるでしょう。代表チームの中で、 代表活動の中で、性犯罪をなくすための啓蒙活動の最前線に立ってもらうとか、違う形で反省し、貢献することもできるでしょうし、それが難しいようであれば、代表から辞退してもらえばよいでしょうし、世間も納得できるようなやり方もあるでしょうから。サッカー協会もスポンサーも、反対意見が多いから呼ばないという考えにならないことを祈り、どうやったら呼べるのかを考えてもらえると嬉しいと思います。過去の過ちは過去の話とはもちろん言えませんが、佐野海舟のプレーを見たい多くのファンは、日本だけでなく海外にもたくさんいますから。佐野海舟が代表で活躍することで、小犯罪を抑制することにも貢献できる世界を想像して、私は全面的に応援したいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。